It's 11 p.m. Central European Time, 10 p.m. Western European Time, and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are online. So please let me know that you can hear me. Uh, and I'll wait for a little while, see if there's anyone in the chat. We got Josef Kaitar in there. Uh, I will do a sound check. Let's see. Okay, the sound seems to be working. So Joel Aldrich says, I can hear. Thank you very much. And I'll wait a minute or two before I go through today's stories. And after that, I'll do what I always do. We'll do a little random chat. I'll respond to, well, some of your questions or comments. If you send a super chat, I will definitely read that one out loud. Although if you write some really crazy stuff, I might just thank for the super chat. So I see that the numbers are getting up pretty fast, actually. I'm very happy to see that on a Tuesday evening. Angel Muniz says, "Good evening, as Swede speaks. It's 4 p.m. Central Time here in Minnesota." Yeah, thank you very much and good evening. Yes, I know you have Central Time there, just like in my favorite state of Wisconsin. Okay, there are a few people here now, so let's uh, let's take a look at today's subjects. First of all, I am very happy that you're all here because without you, I would not be able to do what I do. So thank you very much. So today I want to begin the live stream with some good news. Do you remember the Canadian boy taken by Norwegian authorities? I live streamed about that on February 14th. Kai, as the boy is named, is back home with his parents. The international campaign against the Norwegian so-called Child Protection Agency won. I'm very happy to hear this. I do have one recommendation for this family though. Leave Norway immediately. Go to Canada, where you are citizens. Do not trust Norwegian authorities. Not even Canada can be as bad as the Norwegian Child Protection Agency. It just can't. So that was the first thing I wanted to mention. Let's see if there's something going on here. And I guess you remember Justin Welby and that's the Archbishop of Canterbury, by the way, and his comments that Islamic law is not incompatible with British law. I have given his statements my full support in a recent video. Feel free to watch that video, but not right now, of course. Abid Radja, a member of the Norwegian parliament for the Liberal Party Venstre, basically they are left liberals, recently stated at a meeting at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, a meeting held in Vienna, that we must recognize that we have a problem when it comes to integration of Muslims in Europe. I agree with him to this extent. However, he also wrote on his Facebook page and said in interviews with Norwegian mainstream media that he thinks that it is the job of Norwegians to integrate Muslims in Norway, that immigrants who come to Norway should get a Norwegian mentor to help them integrate. He is dead wrong here. And by the way, I am an immigrant from Sweden to Norway. I never got a Norwegian mentor to integrate me. But I digress. So let's go on. Don't get me wrong on this. I'm all for the civil society as opposed to doing things through government. Through voluntary organizations, a lot of good work could and should be done. But, and here is where I disagree with Mr. Radja, who, by the way, is of Pakistani background, and as far as I know, he has never addressed Islam as the real problem. We shouldn't talk about integration. We should talk about assimilation. You can't force anyone to assimilate. It is the duty of the one moving to a country to assimilate. It is the duty of me as an immigrant to assimilate to Norway, to Canada, to the United States, to Russia, wherever I move. With less government and more civil society, a lot could be done. If Muslims want to assimilate, if they want to assimilate, but to assimilate in Norway or any non-Muslim country, you have to leave Islam to assimilate. That is not a preferred choice. That is the choice you have to make. Assimilation or deportation. Islam should have no place in Norway, no place in Sweden, no place in Canada, no place in the United States, no place in any country, really, but at least not in any of the countries that are not yet Islamized, no matter if these countries happen to be Western, Eastern, Southern, or Northern. I have the same opinion when it comes to Islam in Thailand or Islam in Kenya as when I have when it comes to Islam in Sweden or Islam in Canada. There are some people who get this. In 2016, Milos Zeman, president of Czechia, said that it is impossible to integrate Muslims and that Muslims should stay in their own countries. In 2011, Lee Kuan Yew, previous Prime Minister of Singapore, stated that, and I quote, I have to speak candidly to be of value, but I do not wish to offend the Muslim community. I think we were progressing very nicely until the surge of Islam came, and if you asked me for my observations, the other communities have easier integration, friends, intermarriages, and so on, Indians with Chinese, Chinese with Indians, than Muslims. That's the result of the surge from the Arab states. I would say today we can integrate all religions and races except Islam. Close quote. When it comes to Mr. Lee's statement, I agree completely. Here in Norway, we can easily see this by comparing the Vietnamese and Pakistani communities. They arrived in Norway roughly at the same time, the 1970s, and to begin with, there were troubles with both groups. Today, we almost never hear of any trouble with Norwegian citizens of Vietnamese descent, but there is still a lot of trouble with Norwegian citizens of Pakistani descent. The difference? The ones of Pakistani descent adhere to Islam. Same thing in Sweden. When Latin Americans arrived in Sweden, they caused some trouble. Today, you seldom hear of Swedish citizens of Latin American ancestry causing troubles. But people of Arabic, Somali, North African origin, yes. Difference? Islam. Uh, and also, I'll have a look at the comments before I move on. Uh, Bad Ferret says, hi, all the best from England. All the best to you too. Archie Dembold says, hello from Poland, Warsaw. Hello to you too. I'm going to Poland on March 15th to Gdansk. I have someone here from Austria called Kilo of Nemen. Austria is a very good country, or there's a lot of great things going on. I should visit Austria too, but I don't think I will do that right now. I am going to Gdansk, and I'm thinking about going to London in April. We'll see. We got people from Scotland, from France, and we have J. Cole from America. Oh, welcome very much, all of you. So there's one more thing I would like to talk about before we just do the random chat and see if you have any comments to these stories, and that's Justin Trudeau. Don't we have to talk a little about him? He just visited India and he made a fool of himself. Not only the strange dancing, I've been told that that dancing is of religious significance in India, and his clothing. The Indians he met did not dress like that. But by meeting with Khalistani separatists, people who want to break up India, Trudeau has infuriated Indians, and rightly so. Uh, he he compared these Khalistanis with the Quebec movement in Canada. But as far as I know, the Quebec movement in Canada, or the Quebecois separatists, whatever you call them, they don't used to kill people. But the Khalistani, as far as I understand, they do. So at rightlog.in, Ajit Dutta was furious, and among other things, he wrote, and I quote again, as citizen of India, I could not care less if the elected leader of Canada seeks to drive his nation to the dumps. Close quote. And Dutta also wrote on Trudeau, quote, India is not CNN's studio where global champions of pseudo-liberalism, pseudo-secularism, and radical Islamism will find a platform to propagate their hypocrisy and watch the world burn. Close quote. I love it. I have to side with the Indians on this one. Trudeau made a fool of himself in India. And when it comes to Canada, I really hope that Canada will get a sane leader again very soon. So, thank you all for being here. As we speak, we have 14 people watching, and and I'm very happy about all of you. Remember, if you want to, you can get merchandise. Just look at the link in the box right below this live stream. I'm working on figuring out more merchandise, which I hope will be a success, of course. And if you want to donate, you can send a super chat. Just click at the dollar sign below the chat. You can donate through PayPal or you can sign up for Patreon. $1, $10, $1,000,000 is all greatly appreciated. And by the way, check out my website too for information about what I do and how to get in touch with me and how to support my work. Because without you, what I do would not be possible. I really want to underline that. Uh, Archie Demble says, "Come to Warsaw." I really need to go to Warsaw too. This time, I think I will stay in Gdansk. I'm going there on a conference with some anti-Islamic Norwegians. I think we will have some Polish guests. I'm not sure, but for some reason the conference is in Gdansk, and I think it's because of the things going on in Poland. I have looked online and I've seen that you can travel from Gdansk to Warsaw in a few hours, I think, with train. Let's see here. John Keating says Trudeau blamed India's government for setting him up, but refuses to repeat the allegations in the House. Oh, that's really interesting. Actually, it's really interesting because I have a hard time trusting Trudeau. He could, in theory, he could be right, but well, in theory, we can have seven. Well, we can't have seven first day in the same week, but kind of feels like it's about the same probability to that. And my coffee is ready. J. Cole says, "Keep it up. For donations, please consider using Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and Zcash. Those are all the new, or Bitcoin is the old cryptocurrency I know, but the other ones are a little newer. Yeah, I guess I should look more into that. Uh, Maybe I should watch a YouTube video about that, although not exactly right now, of course. Uh, these midweek streams, I'm just trying to figure out which time will be the best to get attention both from North America and Europe, because I'm trying to attract both audiences. And I mean, I find it interesting that on the one hand, I'm telling this family to go back to Canada because I haven't heard of any Canadian authorities being as crazy as the Norwegian one. At the same time, you have Trudeau, and he's really making a fool of himself. But Canada used to have a sane prime minister, I think. Stephen Harper wasn't close near as bad as Trudeau, but as far as I know, I wasn't following Canada as closely then as I do now. And now I follow Canada because what's happening in Canada reminds me of what has happened in Sweden. I guess that's why Canada is I think, my fourth biggest country. I could tell you the US is my biggest country when it comes to my audience. UK is number two, Poland is number three, Canada is number four, and Sweden is number five. Those five I remember, they have been pretty stable for a while now. For a while, Poland was number one when I made some of these Poland videos, and I assume I will make more of these. Let's see here. Maybe I talk too fast. Archie Demble says, "There was so many Sweden in Warsaw that I have to argue with them about political correctness." Uh, yes, Archie, I wonder, the Swedes that you meet in Warsaw, are they politically correct or are they kind of leaving Sweden to travel to Poland to get away from political correctness? I mean, I imagine you would meet both kinds and a mix of the two. And I mean, I sort of was in an argument with, with someone I know about the role of Poland when it comes to Sweden and stuff like that. And he thought that Poland were being unsolidarical or something like that for not opening up their borders to mass Islamic immigration. To which I outright stated, you should be happy that Poland is not opening up their borders to that. First of all, because Sweden will not be helped by Poland going to falling to pieces. And second of all, when Sweden has went down, when Germany has went down, when all these countries turn has been Islamized, where are you going to escape? Then you will be happy that Poland is not Islamized, and if Poland will accept you, we'll see about that. J. Cole says Canada is throwing it all away. They have been doing that for a while. I hope that that will change soon. I'm not sure when they have elections in Canada again. No, I'm not really sure. I think Canada is more of a parliamentarian system than the US is, and that might be a problem because parliamentarian politics seem to give you kind of a middle of the road policies, which I don't like. Bill B says hello from New Jersey, USA. Well, hello to you too. I haven't been to New Jersey yet, but I think I flew over New Jersey when I was in the States in September because I landed in New York and then I kept on flying to London. John Keating says 2019. Oh, so I hope the Canadian election will give a better result next time. There are some elections coming up. There is an election coming up in Italy next week, which will be very interesting, especially if you get some kind of Eurosceptic result. That would be really good. There is an election coming up in Sweden in the fall. And okay, Canada 2019. So there will be some things to watch. J. Cole says, your channel is good because all of us who love freedom and Christian culture need to organize internationally the way the left has for 100 years. I agree completely. I mean, I don't have anything to add. That's exactly the way I see it. And I mean, as long as you agree on Western values, you're in. We need to work together to stop the madness. Archie Demble says, evening and day, uh, be Donald Trump in Poland. I spent whole night to showing what it's all about Poland. Um, I'm not really sure what you mean, but well, all about Poland sounds good, and I understand that Donald Trump is more popular in Poland than in Sweden and in Germany, and maybe even more popular than he is in the US. But he's getting more popular again there, I think. I saw some numbers on that. Oh, I'm spilling coffee. I need to be careful. Uh, so, I mean, when it comes to Muslims, the problem with them isn't their color, because there are white Muslims and black Muslims, there are brown Muslims and yellow Muslims. The problem is the mentality. And the problem is that the teaching of Islam tells them not to assimilate, because Islam is a conqueror's ideology. That's why I like to highlight how the Polish king John Sobieski, or John Sobieski in Polish, how he stopped the Ottomans, how he stopped how he stopped Islam at Vienna, at the gates of Vienna. And also there was some battle in Hungary in the 1800s, I think. I need to look into that. But the thing is, what we used to call Eastern Europe, which really is Central Europe, countries like Poland, Hungary, even Bulgaria, that still has a Turkish minority, they still have this in their historical memory, the things that went on. Western Europeans forgot about this. Swedes certainly know nothing about this because Sweden was never invaded by any Islamic country, although Sweden was at war with the Barbary States in the 1700s to get joined together with the United States because of pirates from North Africa who would kidnap sailors and enslave them. So, and actually, churches in Sweden back in the 1700s, they would collect money on Sundays to buy these sailors free again from slavery. Sometimes they were able to, sometimes not, but that's not taught in schools. I've learned this somehow, some other way. Fresh Feeling says Trump is running for a second term. That's great for the West. I completely agree. And that's the difference between a parliamentarian system and having a constitutional republic like the United States. In the United States, Trump was actually able to rise and become president. And the party system, as I understand it in the United States, I could be wrong here, but the way I understand it, the party doesn't just make a list and tell you who to vote for. No, you register to run as a Republican, as a Democrat, as a Libertarian, whatever. The people get to decide who to vote for. I think that's better in the Republican primaries. The Democratic Party has some crazy stuff going on. Daniel Whelan says no EU, UN, no Muslim problem in the West. There's a lot to that. I think that if there hadn't been for the EU and all their crazy policies, maybe Sweden would have taken in people anyway. Maybe Germany would have done it anyway, but they couldn't force other countries to do so. Let's see here. Joel Aldrich says in the US, Trump moved from about 36% satisfaction rating up to 50% now. What I like about Trump is he says he is president of Americans, not Democrats, Republicans, or any other broken up segmentation. Exactly, exactly. I agree. I mean, you need a leader who is willing to lead the entire country. Not saying I'm the president of Republicans or I'm president of the Democrats. That's just crazy talk. And I think Obama knew how to speak the nice words, but he was really a dividing. He was really someone who divided. And well, just let me throw this at you. Black unemployment down under Trump. It was up under Obama. What have we got to say about this? For one thing, Horse's horse says hi. Well, hi to you too, Mr. Horse. Horse's horse. So, I mean, I'm going to have a guest in this channel on Saturday. At least that's what we're planning for, and that will be interesting. And I mean, I understand that a lot of people in America, or have gotten this question sometimes, that a lot of people in America would like to understand the middle of the road policies in Western Europe, why we don't get any change. And I think it's the parliamentarian system. The parliamentarian system kind of guarantees middle of the road policies, which will make everyone unsatisfied and unhappy. And that's why Geert Wilders seems to be unable to win in the Netherlands, and Marine Le Pen seems to be unable to win in France, although France do have their presidential elections. And the French president, he is a little more powerful than, well, in some other systems. You have the German president. No one knows who that is because he's got nothing to say. Cayman says, how's it going, everyone? It's good with me. Archidembol says, I take these Swedes and I show them a Warsaw plates on the buildings in that place where died so many people and why we want to preserve our history. Oh, I agree with that, Archie. Absolutely. Uh, and Poland really has struggled a lot to get their independence. Uh, let's see. J. Cole says, do you have a thought on what has happened to your people's sense of pride? I always view the Swedes as great warriors and proud, rightfully, of their women and culture. Um, I think the problem with Sweden is conformism. And the conformism is not a new thing. It's a really old thing. At least since the 1500s, Sweden has been really conformist. Let's try to make a long story short. But Sweden was very Lutheran, to the same extent that Spain was Catholic. It was illegal to be Catholic in Sweden unless you belonged to a foreign embassy. Swedish citizens were not allowed to attend Catholic masses, and there were Catholic masses at the embassies, but Swedish citizens were not allowed to attend this. Some did anyway illegally. If you were caught being a Catholic, you were sentenced to the death penalty. That was always changed. They never actually executed you. Instead, you were deported for life. Uh, and this mentality kind of stuck with the Swedes. You walk with the crowd. So when Sweden in the 20th century, Sweden kind of left the Lutheran conformism. And by the way, in the 19th century, when free churches started popping up, even in Sweden, they were persecuted. A lot of Swedes went to America for this reason, because they couldn't have prayer meetings in their own homes because they were persecuted. So many went to America, to the US, to Canada. Some went to Australia, and so on. Uh, but then the Social Democrats were able to get into power, and they changed the narrative. But all the Swedes, or well, let's say 80% of the Swedes, walked with them. You think the same way as your neighbor thinks, or you think what you think he's thinking is a really crazy thing. And now social democratic ideology has kind of been replaced with political correctness. That's the sad part. And that means in Sweden, you're not supposed to be proud, for instance, of being Swedish. I mean, an American can be proud to be an American. No one thinks that there's anything strange with that. At least no sane person. You have a few SJWs who might think so, but they are the extreme minority. But in Sweden, well, you're not supposed to think so because that's not the narrative. I guess that's really what's going on. Uh, the K-Man says, I heard Sweden is melting down Viking artifacts to destroy your history. Is that true? It's true that Sweden is melting down some Viking artifacts. I think the motivation for this was that they don't have any space for it, but in practice they are destroying the history, the cultural heritage, and I think that's really stupid, really crazy. I mean, really, it's dangerous. You shouldn't do that. It reminds me of, I mean, how they were tearing down statues in Afghanistan under the Taliban. J. Cole says, "Thank you. That is interesting. Thank you for a response." Well, thank you for the question. I could talk about this for hours. I am writing about this to some extent. Well, in the book that I'm writing on. Archie Demble says, "Well, I have heard that Sweden had no history. Actually, they almost conquered Poland in 1600. Well, Sweden does have a history, of course. Every country has a history, and yes, Sweden was trying to conquer Poland. That's true. That's a terrible story, but that's what happened. And it was really kind of an infighting within the same dynasty because the Vasa dynasty, which was the dynasty that kind of started off conformism in Sweden, had a Polish line through King Sigismund or Sigmund Vasa of Poland, and the Polish line had a claim on the throne of Sweden, and they were fighting each other, and then Sweden tried to conquer Poland, so it was crazy. Joel Ulrich says, "Why don't Swedish police carry firearms, or am I mistaken?" I think Swedish police carry firearms, but they are very hesitant to use them, uh, and I think that's the problem. Norwegian police normally don't carry firearms, but they do now because they have been given some special permit by the government that they keep on prolonging, and I am all for that prolongment. But anyway, the question was Sweden, not Norway. Uh, but I think the problem with Swedish police is that they don't really have any authority. They don't have the backing of the system. If they do anything that could be considered wrong, they are in deep trouble. I also think that law-abiding citizens in Sweden should be allowed to own and carry arms. But of course, that's a digression. Cayman says, "What do you think is going to happen in the Italian elections next week?" I think they could go either way. I mean, I really and truly hope that they will go the Eurosceptic way. If they get a Eurosceptic right winger, heck, even if they get a Eurosceptic left winger, as long as they get someone who wants to get Italy out of the EU, I will support that. I will say that's great. I might disagree with some of their other policies, but let's get Italy out of the EU. Let's get Britain out of the EU. Let's get Sweden out of the EU. Let's get Poland out of the EU. Just get out. That's kind of what I think. Uh, Fresh Feeling says, "I lived in Sweden for 2 years, a place called Örebro. Lovely country, lovely people, but the immigrants sitting outside the store begging was shocking to see. They don't want to work." I think what Fresh Feeling is referring to here is the people coming from Romania and Bulgaria, beggars sitting outside stores. We have them in Norway too. Sweden and Norway both have them. I was to Denmark recently, and you don't see many of them there because in Denmark they banned it. Same thing with Finland. They banned it. You don't see it there. In Estonia, not a single one. But in Sweden and Norway, the reasoning goes you can't outlaw poverty, so you will attract these people. And I say people from Romania and Bulgaria, but let's be honest about this. These people are usually not Romanians and Bulgarians. They are usually from the Roma population. It's really a cultural thing. I mean, I'm not anti anything. Oh, I mean, I'm anti ideas. I'm anti Islam. I'm anti political correctness. I'm anti socialism and so on. I'm not. I'm not. even anti Roma, but that culture of begging that won't help anyone. Uh, Archie Devil, what about the Viking stuff from you? I won't read the rest of it. Keep it clean. But actually, the Vikings they were savages, but to some extent, I will have to agree. But I mean, the Vikings were barbarians who were raiding the continent and causing troubles for everyone. Kind of the same thing as Muslims have been doing at the same time and later. Uh, However, I think, and what happened to the Vikings were they started going to church and they stopped being savages. But Swedes need to stand up for themselves. I agree to that extent. Uh, Horses says prayer for you and your beautiful peoples. We watch helplessly in horror. Even I am kind of watching helplessly in horror. Although I moved from Sweden to Norway, so I live in the closest neighbor, and that's kind of scary because culturally you can argue that Finland is the closest neighbor. Geographically, Norway is because Norway has the longest border to Sweden of any country in the world. Whatever happens in Sweden is going to affect Norway. I'm trying to warn Norwegians about this. Some listen, many don't. They think it's not going to happen in Norway. Kind of the same reaction as back in 2005 when France was started burning, cars burning, all that crazy stuff. And Swedish politicians, Swedish media said it's not going to happen. It will not happen in Sweden because we have functioning integration. Of course, Sweden didn't, and now it's happening in Sweden. So I'm saying France in 2005 could turned into Sweden 2018 will will likely turn into Norway 2025 unless Norway turns around. Anyway, Donatas K says, Hi Swede. Did you hear that Canada has changed their anthem lyrics? In one line, it used to say sons, non inclusive, now us, inclusive. I heard that some of that was going on in Canada. I didn't know if it was actually, well, if they actually changed it or not, but I heard there was a debate about that. K-Man says, Is it better in Norway versus Sweden? I would say Norway is still slightly better. Uh, Norway has a more open debate, but not a completely free one to no extent. I mean, even they could even go after me. They have gone after people who said things they thought were offensive. And what I think of free speech is the following: you should be allowed to say or write or publish whatever you want as long as you don't incite to violence. That's the limit. Incitement is bad, but apart from that, everything should go. Even things I disagree with. Of course, I mean, that's just the way it is. We need an open debate. Who is to say what's right or wrong if we can't even have a debate about it? Horses says, We're getting the same stuff here. Uh, I think you are somewhere in the United States. I'm not sure. I have a feeling that you might be in one of the liberal states. Um, I often think of California as being the Sweden of America. I could be wrong, but that's my impression. Archie Demble says most of the Slavs are was too, but still we're about our Slav friends. Yes, divided, but still up to weight. Um, oh, okay. I'll think about that one. Horses says San Diego. San Diego is in Texas, I think. I should know this. I think it's in Texas. Oh, yeah, it is. I actually think of Texas as one of the better states, but I know you have some places in Texas that might not be that good. I've heard that Houston is very liberal. I will have a little coffee and look what's going on. John Keating says California. Yeah, actually, I think it's interesting with California, this movement in California that wants to secede the new and old California thing. There's the rural California wanting to secede from urban California, from Los Angeles, San Francisco, places like that. because rural California is supposedly more conservative. I mean, in theory, I do support that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I support it. Uh, and then you could just let old California, they can secede from the US and join Mexico or Canada or whatever. They can even join Sweden. I mean, it would be strange, but fine with me. But I don't think that will happen. But if you ask me about it, sure. Uh, San Diego is in California, Cayman says. Yo, yeah, yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. Or I mean, I was a little unsure, but I thought so. Horses says we are the Sweden of the US. Yes, I have some distant relatives in California, and the stuff they tell me is kind of the same stuff I see going on in Sweden and Scandinavia. Mm. Let's see. Joel Aldrich says California has created sanctuary cities for aliens who are here without proper visas, etc. Illegal aliens. Federal government trying to stop it. The problem is the governor in California. Yes, and I think California isn't California kind of living on government subsidies. So I think that if California doesn't want to, if California wants sanctuary cities, fine, let them have it. But then they shouldn't get a single taxpayer dollar from the federal state. And maybe you would need a wall to California too, then, and not only to Mexico. Sounds like a joke, but I don't think I'm really joking right now. So let's see. Archidemble says Canada is become the Sweden north of Republic of North America. Yeah, there are some places that kind of are turning into New Sweden, or I mean, Sweden number two. There actually was a New Sweden on the American East Coast, but that's a different story. I had some relatives there back in the 1600s. Uh, Horses says giant welfare state. I assume you're talking about California. Yeah, I've been told, or I saw a video claiming that California has, what is it, 12% of the US population and 32% of the welfare recipients, and that productive citizens are leaving California, moving to Texas. But these people who might seem to be conservative in California are still liberal when they come to Texas because it's a different environment. It's not that hard to be labeled a conservative in California, I suppose. I could be wrong, but it's a little like being a Swedish conservative. The people in Sweden calling themselves conservatives are usually pseudo conservatives. That's why I say there is no conservatism in Sweden. Of course, that's an exaggeration. There is a little, but there is no conservatism in parliament. There might be one or two parliamentarians who actually have conservative ideas. I don't know. There's no party that is conservative in Sweden, not as far as I see it. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think government should be limited, but one of the things government should do is to protect the borders. And the government, one way or the other, there needs to be a process to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come into the country. If we're talking about people traveling, people emigrating, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Any way we talk of it, or whatever you mean, there needs to be a process to decide who can visit the US or Sweden, and who can visit or who can emigrate or immigrate. Daniel Whelan says Ireland has thousands of homeless families. We are swamped with sub-Saharan Africans and Muslims, and our traitorous government has agreed to take 1 million more. We are the next Sweden. Mm, that must be a new thing. I thought of Ireland as pretty. Ireland and Portugal and Iceland has kind of been the part of Western Europe that hasn't really been following the same narrative as the rest of Western Europe, or that's what I thought at least. Cayman says, what is scary is that we are all talking as though Sweden is already gone. You know, full Sharia. Sweden isn't really gone yet, but there's not much left. The problem is Swedes need to grow a spine, or people who have assimilated in Sweden. Let me put it that way. I don't care if these people are of Swedish ancestry, of Serbian ancestry, of Vietnamese ancestry, of Kenyan ancestry, whatever, but people who have assimilated into Western values in Sweden, they need to stand up against Islamization. That's the big threat. And also, they need to stand up to political correctness, to these leftist ideas, because leftism is what allows Islam to come into the West or into any country, really. Horses says, wow, housing crisis here too. Thousands of homeless, and they brought in 90,000 refugees in our county alone. Uh, I guess in your county in California, yeah. The problem is when people use the expression refugees, we don't really know. Are we talking about actual refugees? Or are we talking about economic migrants? What are we talking about? So I actually prefer the term migrant because it's more neutral. It could mean whatever. You could claim that I'm a migrant, and I wouldn't take offense by that. Uh, Joel Ulrich says when you have too high taxes, you push out job creating businesses and property taxes go. So high real estate ownership starts to become only for the upper class. Even middle class suffers. Yeah, it's kind of a downward spiral. Uh, yeah, the Cayman says I've seen pictures of those California homeless cities. Uh, Very scary. Yeah, I saw something about that too. Yeah, that looked really scary. And the problem with California is socialism. The problem with Sweden is socialism plus Islam. Add a little Islam to that. Problem with Germany, socialism and Islam, and so on. There we go. Bill B says this January New Jersey got a new governor. He wants New Jersey to become a sanctuary state. I certainly hope that won't happen. Uh, so you just had an election, then I guess the old governor actually endorsed Donald Trump. Eventually, he did. I think. I don't remember his name right now, but as far as I can remember, he did. Joel Ulrich says capitalism is better. Yes, it's a lot better. I'm all for a free market when we speak about financial policies. On the cultural policies, I think we need to vet who comes into the country, and we need to realize that the clash of civilization is a real thing. And it's something in your mind. I mean, the problem isn't the color of your skin. The problem is your values, your value systems. And as I said, Vietnamese people in Norway assimilated, and Latin Americans in Sweden assimilated. But Muslims won't assimilate. The only assimilated Muslims that I have met are people who left Islam, and thus they are no longer Muslims. Cayman says European democracy equals Marxism. It's kind of a soft Marxism, but basically, yes, I agree. Daniel Whelan, yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. Anyway, the UN EU must be disbanded for Europe to keep its European identity and have a peaceful future. I agree that both the UN and the EU should be disbanded. I think that all sane European countries should leave the EU, and all sane countries should leave the UN. And I think, for instance, I think that the US should leave the UN, and then they should kick UN out of New York. Let them have their meetings in Canada, or in Sweden, or in Saudi Arabia. Joel Aldrich says, providing, of course, markets are fair, not manipulated through monopolies or any other unfair means. Honest capitalism. Sure, absolutely, I agree. And a lot of monopolies are created through government privileges. At least I think so. Uh, I I saw some discussion on Facebook where they complained about expensive hot dogs at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and they said that this is capitalism, and I was like, no, it's not. I'm pretty sure there is some kind of government meddling in the economy related to this. Although I did also say, you know that airports are by definition expensive, but if you add government regulation to this, it will be more expensive. Anyway, DM Rojas says socialism and terrorism destroy Venezuela. I see that a very similar method is destroying Svenka. I'm not sure what Svenka is, if you mean Sweden maybe, but I agree that that's what happened to Venezuela. And Venezuela, I haven't spoken much about Venezuela because, well, there are lots of things I would like to talk about, but I don't have time for everything. But because there's so much of it. But Venezuela is really a good example, or it's a sad but good example of what happens when you have socialist policies. In a best case scenario with socialism, you get the soft socialism, so you get Sweden or Germany or France or something like that. While worst case scenario, you get North Korea, and Venezuela is pretty close to that, I think. Venezuela doesn't have to be poor. Venezuela have oil, they have natural resources. I think they've got everything they need. But under a socialized system, you would create shortage of sand in Sahara. That's just the way it is. And under socialism, they now are running out of oil in Venezuela. I mean, it's just the way it is. Socialism just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work if you want any kind of prosperity. It might work fine if you want everyone being equally poor, but that's another thing. Archie Demble says, "What would happen that Sweden will wake up?" I don't know. I wish I knew because after the Stockholm terrorist attack, I don't know what needs to be happen or what needs to happen. I hope that I am wrong, and I suspect I am right when I say that Sweden is lost, but I hope I'm wrong. And the things going on in Sweden, I use them for all it's worth to highlight Sweden as a warning example to the rest of the world. But I hope Sweden turns around, and I hope Sweden turns around fast. And if Sweden does, I will highlight Sweden as an example of positive change. Until that happens, though, I have no other choice than point to Sweden and say, don't do as the Swedes. Cayman says, "Are you permanently in Norway or are you coming to the US?" My plan is to relocate to the US. Uh, Fresh Feeling says, "Brexit is in trouble. They want to water it down to get the open and free movement of people back on." Yes, I have seen that Brexit. We will see if there will be a Brexit or not, and what kind of Brexit it will be. I am rooting for a hard Brexit. I think that the UK should be allowed to decide their own policies, their own borders, their own everything, and I think that the UK should be able to have unilateral trade deals with Norway, with Switzerland, with the US, with Canada, with Australia, with whoever they want to trade with Russia, hey, anyone. But I'm afraid that Fresh Feeling is right here. I hope not, but yeah, it's in trouble, and that worries me. Horse's Horse sent me $2 in a super chat. Thank you very much. And he says they are predating on us as we speak. Uh, yeah, I think I agree. I'm not really sure who they are. It could be a lot of things. It could be mainstream media. It could be middle of the road crazy policies. There's a lot of stuff it could be. But yes, I assume I agree. And thank you very much. I'm very happy about that super chat. So normally I will do this every Saturday and maybe once sometime in the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll see. I might do one more mid of the week live stream this week on Thursday. I haven't really decided. We'll see if there are any good topics we can see, and I'm also trying to figure out when is the best time in to do the midweek live stream. So I'm checking that out too by checking the response. And thank you, everyone, all of you, for being here. Thank you for the good discussion. Thank you for your support. Thank you in general. And because, without you, there wouldn't be any me. At least I wouldn't be able to do this. And I'm very happy to do this. So I'm very happy that you're here. Joel Aldrich says Sweden has to turn back to its traditional culture if it wants to survive. You can have some immigration, but immigrants must integrate into the culture, not the reverse. That seems to be the problem. Yeah, basically, I agree. I talk of assimilation, but the way you use the word integrate, I agree. That's the way it should be. The problem with Sweden here is that a lot of Swedes don't even know what Sweden's traditional culture is anymore, and 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 the ones to blame for this, that's the left. It's I would say it started with okay. Before I go off on this tangent, J Cole says, "Have a great evening." Have a great evening to you too. Uh, so let's get back to what I was going to make a short rant about, or rantish. Uh, how the Swedes forgot their traditional culture, what Swedish culture really means. When Social Democrats got into power, well, the first government where the Social Democrats were in power was in the 1920s, but really from the 1930s we can talk about the start of the Social Democratic era in Sweden. From 1932 until 1976, Social Democrats were always in government. They always had a prime minister, and uh, and they weren't interested in history because they wanted to create a brave new world. So they made sure Swedes forgot about their history. Let's put it that way. Of course, I could go deeper into this, and I do in the book I'm writing, by the way. But that's kind of what happened. So Swedes really need to rediscover, because Swedes don't know where their values come from. They still have some of these values because it's still been handed down from generations, but they don't really know where it comes from. So they get the idea that everyone thinks like a Swede, which of course is not true, but that's kind of the idea. Fresh Feeling says, "Keep up the good work, Sweden. Thank you very much." And Archie Demble says, "Keep it up, you Sweden, to the right patch." Okay, thank you. I will try. One of the things about Sweden is that Swedes think that Swedish values are universal values. Of course, that's not true. Uh, but what the Swede in general will think is that if someone moves to Sweden, we don't need any assimilation policies or integration policies, or whatever you want to call it, because if we are nice to them, they will see that we are nice, and they will be nice to us, and they will turn into Swedes within a few years, and that doesn't happen, of course. Uh, Kids Are Mean says, "Thank you for the A plus plus content the Swede speaks." Well, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for being here. Converter Rockstone says, Jerome Corsi's videos are missing. I'm not sure who Jerome Corsi is, but I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with YouTube, or I think so at least. Maybe I should watch my mouth here, so I won't get flagged. I'm still trying to grow this channel. I've had this channel for a little more than a year now, and I've had sometimes fast growth, often slow and steady growth, but it's been growing. And for a while, I've been live streaming, and that's kind of a good how do you call it? It's a good interaction with my audience. I get a different kind of interaction than when I make a video. Joel Aldrich says, "If possible, when you finish your book, perhaps you could read it aloud and offer an audio version." Maybe I could, but you would get the crazy Swedish accent then. Could ask someone else to do it too, but maybe you want my accent. Who knows? But I guess that's a possibility. I haven't thought of it, but I guess so. My plan is, unless I get a publisher, who knows? That's actually possible too. But if I can't find a publisher, my plan is to just self-publish it through Amazon or something like that. Fresh Feeling says, "Sanity for Sweden is a good channel also." I agree. I have met with him, and oh, he's a good guy. I like him. And so maybe you saw that we made a few videos together, and I hope we'll do more later. But we live in different cities, even in different countries. But if we're in the same place, I think we are able to do some collabs. Joel Older says, "Lol, I like accent." Oh, okay, yeah, we'll see. I'll think about it. Maybe I should do that too. So I've been here for 55 minutes. There are 20 people watching. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for participating in the chat. Uh, Thank you for your support. And because without you, there's no me. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm really happy about this. And if you have any ideas for live streams, time, subjects, whatever, well, just let me know, and I'll keep it in mind, and we'll see. Uh, Joel Aldrich says, "Thank you for sharing with us." Well, thank you for participating. Archie Demble says, "Woman, bishop, and lesbian in Sweden are too much." I think you're referring to the Lutheran bishop in Stockholm. A few years ago, I don't remember her name right now, but a few years ago, she wanted to remove a cross from a church, from the Sailors' Church in Stockholm, because she wanted the Sailors' Church that everyone should be able to come there, whether you were Christian, Muslim, whatever, and the cross would be offensive. She thought. Luckily enough, the Sailors' Church in Stockholm is not under the jurisdiction of the Bishop of Stockholm. Thank God for that. Really, I mean it. Thank God for that. So she wasn't really able to remove any cross. So the cross is still there, as far as I know. Next time in Stockholm, I should go visit that church and check if the cross is there. I could even film it, and maybe I should see if I could talk a little about that. Uh, Bill B says, "Do more live streams." Okay, duly noted, and thank you. I'm trying to figure out how often I should live stream. I have Saturday as the live stream I will always do unless I really can't. If I'm in an airplane, on a ferry without what do you call it, without Wi-Fi, something like that, I won't. But as long as it's possible, I will always do a live stream Saturday at 10 p.m. Central European Time, 9 p.m. Western European Time, and 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and so on. I state all these times on my website too, swedespeaks.com. It's in my posts usually. Horsius Hort just sent me a super chat of $5. Thank you very much. And he writes, he writes, the eugenicists have injected hundreds of thousands of criminally insane men into our countries. Sorry. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Uh, it's kind of with left wing policies, you will attract the wrong kind of people too. I mean, really. And the thing is, the left doesn't want people who work and pull their own load, or whatever you call it, because they know that people who work will not vote for the left. Like Tommy Robinson said in an interview I watched yesterday, when he was interviewed recently by a Norwegian, by a Norwegian YouTube channel, and he had made the same point, uh, that the reason that Labour in the UK are catering to Muslims instead of to the working class is because the working class got wealthier, and then they stopped voting for Labour and started voting Tory instead, and well, things like that. Archie Demble says, "What about cross on Sweden flag?" There has been some discussion about that. I haven't heard anything very recently, but a few years ago, uh, the youth wing of the Swedish Liberal Party, which really is the left liberals, they wanted to remove the cross from the Swedish flag because they thought the cross was exclusive or something like that, or excluding. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, there's been a debate about it, but nothing has happened yet. Thank God. It could happen, but hopefully nothing will happen in the long run. It might change if Sweden doesn't turn around because of Islamization or something like that. But anyway, yes, that has been discussed. I want the cross to stay. Let's see. I got my wooden flag over here. Uh, this is actually a tourist flag that I bought in Sweden about a year ago. Let's see. Um, and Joel Aldrich says, "If no one works, who will pay the taxes?" That's kind of a paradox, isn't it? Uh, so even left wingers will need to have some people working to pay taxes to get to have the welfare state going. But yeah, they don't have a good solution to that one. DM Roja says, "Do you have any Blogspot online?" No, I do not. And I don't know what Blogspot is, so please inform me. Let's see. Daniel, oh, I missed that. Daniel Welland said, "Thanks for putting the time in." Well, okay, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that a lot. I see that some of my regular commentators in the, how do you say, in the comment section is all, or they are also here, and I'm happy about that. Uh, Valhalla Dome said a premeditated left Marxist plot to swamp Europe with those brain-dead Islam infected agreed upon in Barcelona in 1995. I know there is some talk of that. I haven't looked into it that deeply, but I know some people claim that happened. Horses Horse says, are the Swedes learning to stay together and protect each other? Swedes are kind of individualist, but not in a good way. Swedes are state individualists. That means that Swedes will not look to their family, their relatives, their neighbors, their friends for cooperation. If a Swede has a problem, he or she goes to the government. That's actually a part of the whole left wing. Well, what happened with the? Uh, well, that's what happened to Sweden. They kind of destroyed the family unit with socialism. It's really awful. And I mean, it's happened to some extent in all over the Western world, but it's happened a lot in Sweden and the Scandinavian countries. But I think Sweden is kind of number one here. Oh, blogs, DM Rogers. Oh, Blogspot. I don't have Blogspot, but I use I use WordPress, and my website is of swedespeaks.com. I paid a few dollars to get that address instead of instead of a WordPress address. Daniel Wellen, what do you say to a lefty with two black eyes? Nothing. Someone told them twice already. Well, that's kind of funny. Yeah, I can't help it. Yeah, that's kind of funny. What was that Ronald Reagan joke again? Or maybe it's more of a quote? A communist is someone who reads Marx and Lenin. An anti-communist is someone who understands Marx and Lenin. I think that's the one it is. Joel Aldrich, non-political fun question. Which country in Europe has the best chocolate? Isn't that Switzerland? Or am I completely off the rails here? I wonder if it might be Switzerland or Austria or something like that. Or maybe Belgium. Oh, I'm not really sure here. Don't there isn't there some kind of Belgian? I should have tried that when I was at the airport in Brussels, but I was a little stressed. Maybe next time. I'm not much for chocolate actually, or I like the real proper dark chocolate. Debbie Bradley says, "Yup, Switzerland. Yeah, I should go to Switzerland sometime and try the chocolate then. I've heard Switzerland is expensive, but well, I'm used to Norway, so." Archie Demble says, "Not in Poland. We have family value." Yeah, Poland has doesn't have the same kind of leftist the same kind of leftist policies as the Scandinavian countries, I think. Probably because in Poland you had communism and you freed yourself from it, and of course you might have a few leftist thing going on anyway, but you know the value of family, and also I think because Poles are Poles are Catholic. I'm not a Catholic, but I can see some good things with Catholicism, like family values, things that an evangelical like me also likes. So there's no conflict here. Uh, let's look at a few more comments here. Denise T says, "Are most the Muslims in Norway on welfare?" I don't know. I guess it depends a little on which group, but a lot of them are. Uh, and I think, yeah, I think I haven't got the statistics in front of me right now, but many are. I think. Let's see. Horses. Almost all of them are on welfare. I assume that would be in California too. I'm afraid. Joel Aldrich was drinking chocolate milk during this chat. Oh, good for you. Debbie Bradley. Yes, it is very expensive. Yeah, I think it is, or it could be. Kind Vi Victis says, "Hey, a Swede speaks. PewDiePie's latest video was hilarious. Had a joke about Sweden being Saudi Arabia. Lol. Oh wow, interesting. I really should watch his channel again then. I haven't done that for a while." Valhalla Dome says, "When I worked in Sweden, I talked to a colleague about why I was offered a job. He said nobody goes anymore to pay an expensive university study anymore if you make virtually the same as a bricklayer. In short, yes, that's true. Although I think we should distinguish between actual university education and all of these left-wing indoctrination courses shown off as university education. So depends on what you study. I think that a bricklayer should make more money than someone who major in gender studies, but if you have an actual proper education that you could use for the betterment of society, then you should of course get paid more than a bricklayer. So it depends. Denise T says, how long can citizens stay on welfare in Norway? I believe that you can stay on welfare for your entire life. Or, well, once you hit 67 years old, they will rename it to retirement or pension. And if you haven't made any money at all and only lived on welfare, I suppose you would get some kind of basic retirement money. I don't know. I think so. I haven't looked into that. But as far as I know, there is no limit time wise. But the money you receive might. I don't know. I think there are several different programs, so they might move you from one program to the next, but they will always give you money, I think. Or they, I mean, actually, it will be the taxpayers who pay this money, of course. Horse says, restore the patriarchy. Hey, I'm not completely unsympathetic to that, although I believe in, how do you put it? I believe in equal rights under the law. Uh, I also think that men and women have different abilities in general in different roles, and government shouldn't interfere with that. Let's put it that way. Denise T says lifetime welfare is unfair to the taxpayers, right? Right, absolutely. I mean, I want to abolish the welfare state, but at least we could limit the amount of time you could be given welfare money and stuff like that. Joel already says, I am sorry if I'm not always serious. I like to sometimes be lighthearted when the world sometimes is so turbulent. These times we live in, oh, I understand you completely. I do have some kind of sarcasm going on too. Bill B says, are you familiar with the YouTuber Tina Will? I think that's Tina Wik, but anyway, the Swan of Tuonela from Finland. She talks about the Muslim problem there. I have watched some of her videos. We might not be in the exact same corner, but I have seen some of her stuff, and I have participated a little in the chat at their live streams sometimes when I have the time. Uh, so yeah, I am familiar with her, and apparently I think she knows about my existence. Valhalla Dome says you are right. Oh, I hope so. I'm not sure what I'm right about right now, but maybe what I said about the welfare state or whatever. By the way, Valhalla Dome, since you apparently you lived in Sweden for a while, uh, could I ask you where do you come from originally, or where do you live right now? I mean, country or continent would be enough for me. You don't have to give out anything too detailed. Horses says the Saracens are the weak and entirely parasitic, quite feeding them, then they will wither up and blow away. I think the problem is that Islam, which is what Islam creates failed states. That's why you have all this tribalism going on and all this clan mentality and stuff like that. So, of course, if Sweden is Islamized, the Swedish welfare state will disappear, not by political will, but because no one will be paying into the system. Uh, Actually, I have to tell you a story. Uh, when Milton Friedman won uh, the economic prize, the Nobel Prize for Economics, which isn't really a Nobel Prize. The prize is actually handed out by the Swedish National Bank to the memory of Alfred Nobel. But anyway, when he was awarded this prize in the 1970s, together with a left-wing Swedish economist named Gunnar Myrdal, Gunnar Myrdal said to Milton Friedman that there is no poverty in Scandinavia. And I guess his points would be that our welfare policies are wonderful. Milton Friedman responded to him, that's interesting. There is no poverty among Scandinavians in America either. I think that's kind of funny. Probably not the response that this left wing Swedish economist expected. Denise T says Norway is allowing homeschooling. Formally, yes. However, if you homeschool in the wrong municipality, the government will or government authorities, the Norwegian child care or whatever you call it, child welfare, well, they will show up at your door and take your child. That's what happened to this family who are Canadian citizens. The father in the house is born in Norway, and the name tells us that he is Norwegian. I don't know if he is a Canadian citizen, but they used to live in Canada. The mother is a Canadian citizen. The son is a Canadian citizen. They showed up and took the kid, but because of this campaign going on all over the world, or at least all over the West, they have their son back. And I'll say, leave, leave Norway now. That's my advice for them. I don't think they're watching, but if they are, hey, or if they will watch this later, leave, go back to Canada. It can't be worse. Well, Haladon says jobs. Oh, okay. And then he says Holland. Yeah, I should visit Holland too. But there are so many places I should visit. I'm trying to sort of portion it out a little. One of my purposes with traveling, because I travel a lot, I've been traveling a lot for the last year since I started doing this. And uh, I am not really making any money from traveling per se. It's usually not something that will benefit me financially in the short run, but in the long run, it might. Plus, also, I like to travel. I like to get different perspectives. And mm, I mean, I want to see what's going on, not only in Sweden and Norway, but all over the world in general and all over the West in specific. So, where was I going with this again? I was sort of off on a tangent. Well, anyway, so I'm trying to portion out. I go one place 1 month, another place maybe the 1 month after or 2 months after, and stuff like that. And I have to go to America every now and then. Well, because I'm trying to relocate, and well, I kind of have an American family now. Anyway, uh, so I'm going to Poland in March 15th. I'm flying from Oslo to Gdansk, and I hope to be able to interview some Polish people. I have no idea if I will be. I hope so. Otherwise, I will have some Norwegians on the same trip to interview. I think at least some of them will be willing to talk about the things going on in Norway, in Poland, in Europe, in the West. And I haven't really decided yet, but I am thinking about going to London in April. A, what was the date I landed on? I think maybe April 16th or something like that. That's what I was thinking about. And staying for a long weekend, getting there on Thursday, leaving on Monday. Because Britain is my second biggest audience, and also I could live stream from the UK, and maybe that would actually attract more audience. Uh, Denise T says America isn't really that different from Norway, right? I think there is a cultural difference. The difference is that Americans don't rely on the state the same way that Norwegians do, or Swedes. The mentality is different, at least the mentality that I saw in the Midwest. I mean, I can't really speak for California or New York. I don't know about those places. But the Midwest, it seemed like people help each other, but they don't go through the government. I mean, I know there's welfare in Wisconsin too. Of course it is. It's everywhere in America, I think. But the mentality seems to be different. Joel Ulrich asks, how many languages do you speak? I speak, I guess, depending on the proficiency, 4 or 5. But 3 of them, well, Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish is almost the same language. English, some German, and very basic Finnish. So my very basic Finnish would be number 6, but I can't have a conversation in Finnish. I can have a very basic one. I had a basic one last summer, which was interesting, but I can't discuss politics or theology or anything like that in Finnish. I can't really do that in German either, but I can do it to a larger degree. English, I am somewhat able to discuss politics and theology and philosophy and things like that, and I'm happy about that. Horses says, you're welcome here. Talk to Stephen. I would also like to send you a gift. I would be honored if you receive it. Uh, hey, Horse, let's do it this way. You can send me an email. You'll find my email address if you look at my YouTube channel under About, or if you go to swedespeaks.com and look under Contact, my email address is there. If you email me, I can give you I can give you an address to send it to. Archie Demble says, "Come to Warsaw. We can hook up somewhere." Okay, I will go to Warsaw at some point, but I'm not making any promises when it comes to March. I don't know how much free time I will have from that conference. I'm not really sure about the entire program. I was just invited, and actually, I didn't even have to pay for my trip or my hotel. I was invited, and the only thing so so I kind of had to keep with the program. So I don't know how much free time I will have to do other things. It will be interesting anyway, and hopefully I will be able to to interview some people, both Norwegians and Poles and whatnot. Let's see. Valhalla Dome says multiple reasons for leaving Sweden. I know not all is well in Holland, but at least here I try to stand up against the forces of evil. That's a good thing, Valhalla Dome, and I hope that Dutch politics will be more of the right wing branch, and I mean like conservative nationalists, stuff like that. I would love to see Geert Wilders as Prime Minister of the Netherlands. That might not happen, but that would be wonderful. So we've already been online for over an hour, and I have a wonderful audience. So thank you all for being here. And well, just know that without you, I couldn't do this. So I'm very happy that you're here. Denise T says Trudeau cares more about the diversity than Canadians. Yeah, that's a problem, and I mean that's a real problem. So I really hope that Trudeau gets to leave office in 2019. I hope that Canada gets a sane prime minister, a sane leadership. I hope there will be some kind of conservative backlash or whatever we call it in Canada to bring in sane policies. I really hope that will happen. I don't want Canada to turn into Sweden number two, but it looks like it is right now. And that's why I keep an eye on Canada all the time to see what's going on. But I hope Canada turns into a sane country, and I think there are a lot of sane Canadians still. There are even sane Swedes, a few. But really, I really hope that the things go better in Canada soon. I hope that will happen. Denise T says, "What is your opinion of Geert Wilders?" As far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, he's a good guy. I I agree with his stance on Islam, and as far as I know, let's put it this way: I don't think he's a crazy racist. I think he's more of a cultural warrior. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. I think we are in the same corner there. I mean, me and Geert Wilders. So if I, sorry, if I was allowed to vote in the Netherlands, I would most likely vote for him. Denise T says, "I like Geert." Well, that makes two of us. Okay. Horses, horses. Anybody worried the Muslims will get European weapons? I'm pretty worried about that. I mean, if Sweden would be Islamized completely, Sweden has a pretty large arms industry, uh, so that's actually a pretty scary thought. In the 1960s or 1950s, the debate was to have nuclear weapons in Sweden. Back then, I would probably have supported it, but anyway, the point is Sweden has a large arms industry. Sweden has been selling arms all around the world. It's still there, and let's say Sweden would get a Muslim leadership. Imagine the harm that could be done just with the weapons available. And until the end of the Cold War, Sweden had a very large army as compared to their population. Because Sweden had this neutrality policy and Sweden should be able to defend itself against attacks. After the end of the Cold War, Sweden kind of dismantled their army, which was stupid, by the way. But anyway, Denise T says, "Horses, horse. Obama and Clinton armed ISIS." Sadly, I have to agree. They really rooted for a wrong horse there. And I mean, of course, Assad is not a good guy. Assad is a crook. That being said, I much prefer Assad to any of the foreseeable alternatives in Syria. And as far as I know, the Christians in Syria also prefer Assad to what will come after him. If he is deposed, what will come then? And he is not as bad towards the Christians as the other ones would be. I think that's the general understanding. And I think they understand that much better than Western liberals. Horses Horse says, my dad's friends were talking about the grooming gangs 30 years ago. Yeah, I think that's been a thing for a long time. And I think it was common knowledge in Sweden back in the 80s, but something happened in Sweden. Swedes did speak a little more openly for a while, but then something happened, and actually I left Sweden 2006, and Sweden turned more politically correct after I left it. I started realizing that after having been in Norway for a few years, looking at Sweden and all the things Swedes couldn't say. Swedes have always had this, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. There's always been there. But it's kind of got worse somewhere around 2010 or something. I'm not really sure, but I just noticed that that was happening. Valhalla Dome says Dutch politics are becoming more insane by the week. Advisory referendum is illegal, abolished. Last, I'm not really sure about the last part what that means, but I'm sad to hear that Dutch politics are becoming more insane though, and you could say in Sweden politics are becoming more, in one way, more outspoken, but nothing's really happening, and it's an election year, so I don't trust when the Social Democrats try to play tough. When the moderates, the so-called Conservative Party, when they try to play tough, I don't trust them because it's an election year, and they want to get voters back from the Sweden Democrats, so they will say things that not going to happen after the election. I'm pretty sure about that. And now they want to change the constitution too. It's crazy. Valhalla Dome says we have a new kid on the block in the Netherlands, Thierry Baudet. I recognize that name. I haven't checked him up, but I think I've seen the name. Horses Horse says my Dutch neighbors are here because of the Muslims. Oh, I believe you. I trust you on that. I could definitely see that happening. I even overheard that some people from India, because of Islamization of northern India, are leaving India and moving to Australia. I mean, it's something I saw just with half an eye, but I saw that was going on. So it's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. And Islam is not the only problem in the world, but it's the biggest problem, together with political correctness. That's sort of my stance. So those are the two things I fight the most. Other things will have to wait. Archie Dembo says, what happened if in next election in Sweden the right wing would win? Uh, I think depends on what you mean by right wing, but let's say the Sweden Democrats would get their own majority. That's what I hope happens. I don't think it will happen, but that's what I think should happen. Not because I support them that much, but because they are the only party with some sense of reality among the parties in parliament. There is one more party I kind of like, but they are not in parliament. Uh, so if that would happen, I assume they would at least get saner migration policies. Maybe they would say we will only accept quotas from the UN or something like that. I think that would help. But to reverse what's happened to Sweden already for the last 2 or 3 decades, to turn the tide around, that's difficult. There might be really nasty clashes. If nothing is done, those clashes will get worse, though, in time. It's a little of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Horses horses, but they are still afraid to talk about it. That sounds like a Western European thing. Denise T says people around the world are joining the NRA. Maybe I should apply for a membership then. Uh, and I think that law abiding citizens should be allowed to own and carry weapons, and I think you should have that law everywhere. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you should be allowed to defend yourself. Period. Because the dictatorships, the first thing they do is to take away your guns. Then they start killing you or locking you up or whatever. So we've been here now for almost 1.5 hours. So I think I'm starting to think about rounding this up. So if you have any closing questions or so, give them to me now, and we'll take a few minutes, 5 or 10, and then I think I will. Well, I'll take it a night. Isn't that what you say? Something like that. It's getting late here in Scandinavia. Even late, or I think Poland has the same time zone as Scandinavia actually. I'll finish my coffee. Denise T says, thanks for a live chat. Yo, you're welcome. Thank you very much for being here. And yeah, absolutely. Everyone who's been here, uh, thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the discussion, for the comments, for the interaction, for all kinds of support. And well, just know that without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. It wouldn't be that fun to just stare into a screen without no one to talk to. Horses, when will you be on again? I will definitely be on Saturday. I might be on Thursday if I find some good stuff to talk about. We'll see, but maybe Thursday and definitely on Saturday. Uh, Kane Victis says, thanks for the stream shares. Thank you. Well, thank you too. And Bill B says, great live stream. Can't wait for the next one. Okay, check out if something happens on Thursday, but at least on Saturday. Horses, thank you. Archidemble says, we Polish cannot defend, be allowed. Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Valhalla Dome says, we had a referendum law in the Netherlands, but the party that was all for giving democracy back to the people in the 60s killed off the referendum last week against the constitution. That's awful, but it kind of reminds me of what's going on in Sweden, where they want to abolish free speech. Really, I don't think they realize what they're doing, or maybe they are. I don't know. I'm like, are they evil or are they stupid, or is it a combination? I don't know. But judge the tree by its fruits, as they say. I don't really. So if they understand what they're doing or not, it still has to be stopped anyway. And all this crazy stuff needs to be stopped. If it's in the Netherlands, if it's in Sweden, if it's in Canada, if it's in the United States, wherever crazy stuff goes on, it has to be stopped. And most of all, political correctness has to be fought. Islam and Islamization has to be fought. And with those words, until next time, have a nice day and God bless.